So we're continuing to talk about proportions, but this time we're going to look at it in terms of similar figures. So we're looking at some figures and we're going to solve for x. These figures are similar, and what that means is that, like, for one side, if you multiply one side by 2, then you have to multiply all sides by 2. So the shapes are the same, but they increase or decrease in the same amount. There's several ways that you can solve it. I'm going to show it to you in a proportion way. I know that some of you will be able to look at some of these and be able to get the answer. But whenever there are things like x or things that have decimals, it is hard to do. So I want to show you the method, even though you can do some of these without doing it this way. So you start with one side of the triangle, and you have to figure out, okay, what sides correspond to each other. These two pictures are very similar, so it's easy to tell that 12 goes with 3 and that 20 goes with x. So start with the 12 and divide it by whichever one it goes with, which is 3. Because I started with this triangle, I need to start with this triangle as well. So we have 12 over 3 equals 20 over x. And then we solve this the way that we have been. 12 times x is 12x. 3 times 20 is 60. Divide both sides by 12. And you get x is 5. Number 2, very similar. Again, it looks like the x corresponds with the 9. 1 corresponds with 3. And then cross multiply. 3x equals 9. Divide both sides by 3, so x is 3. X goes with 8, 4 goes with 16, so start with x, divide it by 8. Go with 4. Remember, don't put 16 first because x is what we started with, so we need to start with 4 on the next one. So you get 16x equals 32. Divide both sides by 16, so x is 2. Now I want to look at, just skip on down, and I want to look at some problems that aren't quite so easy to look at and tell what corresponds together. A lot of times what you have to do is compare and decide, okay, which ones go together. So looking here, these two sides, we have a 9 and a 10. I will tell you that 10 is the longer side. So looking at 99 and x, well, kind of look at it and decide which of these two sides look like they're longer. Well, to me it looks like x is longer. So that means that 10 and x correspond together and 9 and 99. You have to think about what goes together because it's not always just which one has a factor that's missing. So be very careful about that. So if I start with 10, I'm going to divide it by x, and then we'll have 9 over 99. Cross multiply, so 9x equals 990. Divide by 9, so x is 110. Number 8, it's interesting that these are the same. Well, that means these are going to be the same. You don't even need to solve. We can just know that that's going to equal 100. Okay. Let's look at 9 and 10. 9 and 10 are the ones that are a little bit more complicated just because of the way that they are written. So you have to decide again which ones go together. So I know that 10 is the longer of these two sides. And then look at these two sides. Which one of these is longer? Well, x plus 2 is longer because it just looks longer. So that means that 10 corresponds with x plus 2, and that means that 3 corresponds with x. So you have to figure that out when you're doing it. Sometimes this one will go with this one. It doesn't always come out quite so just exactly like this every time. So we're going to cross multiply. 3 times x and 3 times 2. Actually, I'm going to write it down below it just so that it's easier to see. And then 10 times x is 10x. Because we have a number here, I'm going to subtract 3x on both sides and get 7x. Divide by 7 on both sides, so you get 6/7. That is a decimal, which you can leave it as a fraction or a decimal. So notice the x will not always be a number like those ones that we just did. Sometimes it comes out to be decimals and fractions. So number 10. Similar kind of problem. Let's look at it. So 18 is the bigger side, obviously, 8 and 18. Now look over here. Is this side longer or is this side longer? Well, to me it looks like that the 10 is longest, so it looks like 18 and 10 are going to go together. And then these two will go together. And then we cross multiply and solve. So we're going to multiply these right here. 2x plus 1 times that, so you're going to get 36x plus 18. Multiply here and you get 80. So we're going to subtract 18 on both sides. And then you're going to divide by 36.